Bali kakain lang kami ng lunch, tapos after nito punta na kami sa practice room para ready sa match namin.
Tayo, bugbugan nga eh.
Patay ka na dapat sa palo eh! Cancer animation!
May attack speed si ano kami so... 0.65. 0.65.
Dadaya! Dadaya! Paano ko namatay?
Tanggal ka na!
Very full of resources and that's why down boxing
Nakakalimutan yung mga basic. Nakakalimutan yung mga basic ah. Pag may nawala, sabi agad. 10 seconds nawala, sabi agad.
Okay. Kaya sa atin yan eh.
1, 2, 3, Messi! Sisi ko dun. Relax mo na kayo. Huwag mo na mag-usap. Manood tayo dito. Ano pa, hold on muna kayo bago mag-usap.
Relax na kayo!
Hindi, wala ko naman patado ng ganyan.
Team decision yun.
Decision yun, lahat naman.
Anong sisiyan dito?
Paano nawala siya sa lako nun?
Color nga na siya.
Eh ako yung pumunta si Amen, dahil hindi mo siya muna siya pigigilan.
Hindi ko siya pinigilan. Hindi ko siya pinansin.
Welcome ladies and gents, as this is gonna be the finals, day 4, last day for Rift Rivals, as we will finally determine who will be ultimately gaining glory for their respective regions. Of course, before anything else, let us introduce ourselves. We are gonna be your casters, Arctic Atyo Service Fam, and of course with me is Atlas.
Man, it's been a long journey so far. In these past few days, been very grueling. Like all these days straight, these teams have been playing all these best of ones. Very, very tiring, very, very taxing on the mind, on the body as well. So I'm really interested to see how the teams of GPL and the LJL will fare here as we look at our drafting here for the first game. As you know, for the format for our finals here, the first game will be played between the third seeds of the LOL Japan League and the Garena Premier League. Second game will be second seed, third game will be first seeds, fourth game will be first seeds again, and then fifth game, if ever, will be second seeds again. So we'll see the drafting between MSK and Unsold Stuff Gaming.
Man, look at this though, for both MSK and Unsold Stuff Gaming, 4 junglers already taken off from the board here, make that almost 5, so this is going to be an interesting test for both Toms and you here as to what pocket picks they could bring out with all these limitations coming off. But of course, the Galio, as usual, 100% ban rate, no surprise right there.
Oh, Warwick coming from MSK here, just a priority. Just already have a very good jungler. We have seen like the Warwick being picked up. Actually, it's a deny coming from Neo, because Neo did pick up the Warwick in the previous games here in Rift Rivals. So MSK picking that up is definitely good. And the thing about Warwick is he's not very mechanically complicated, you know, so you can pick him up as long as you know the very basics and the fundamentals of jungling. You can pick him up to steal away from Unsold Stuff Gaming, but here comes Neo picking up the Ivern for himself. As for Hareti, the Caitlyn will be his pickup for this game.
Oh man, I'm really interested in seeing what support they'll be going as far as this draft for Unsold Stuff Gaming's roster rather, because you know, especially with this Ivern, I'm really expecting that, especially if they go for utility support, there's going to be a lot of protection for those carries. So
definitely
to see if that eventually manifests into anything. But looks like we'll be seeing the Kennen locked in for MSK squad right
from Kaingu. We have seen that on the Kennen recently, doing like hit or a miss on that Kennen. Sometimes he goes too deep. Sometimes he just really wrecks everything with a slicing maelstrom. So we'll be seeing how he fares here. As for Unsold Stuff Gaming, picking up the Ivern already means a lot to what their composition will be, and they're going for a lot of power here in the early game with a Renekton. As for Mineski, lots of early game power as well, mid game spikes too, with that Syndra for Exocet. So far, not a lot of information gained from either of the picks, except for Unsold Stuff Gaming. Having the Ivern there together with the Caitlyn really tells a lot about how their game plan will be. You might even see some like cheesy support mid picks here just to keep Hareti alive. We'll see here as we go into our second banning phase. Ash away from Zensho.
Yeah, but there we go. I mean, regardless, this is gonna really be the make it or break it point for Mineski. They've gone, unfortunately, throughout consistent losses within the Rift Rival series. So eventually, this is technically their last chance to not only make their own country, the Philippines, proud, but just generally the region proud, because it's very crucial at this point. If you're gonna think about it, as Atlas mentioned, this is gonna be a third seed, second seed, first seed, second seed format. If ever we had
one chance.
Yeah.
Oh dear, seems like Unsold Stuff Gaming will be going for that Corki mid. Very, very powerful pick, and as I said, the pattern of Corki always getting some popularity, getting some love before Worlds, like in the months before Worlds, definitely repeating here in 2017, here in Rift Rivals. That is actually a lot of power. Like if you consider, once Unsold Stuff Gaming gets a really good support here, might be... Ooh, what is that? Are they locking in this Nunu? It's going to be the Nunu jungle. No, it's going to be the Nunu support actually, I believe.
Nunu
We'll see.
jungle, most
Nunu
likely.
jungle. So who's
Because-
going to be the support? Oh, the Bard here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Because with yesterday, well, even in general, if you look at the constant bans that were put on Mineski throughout the entire tournament, there was a lot of emphasis on this new ban. So, but with that,
Even a Warwick
actually,
top.
yeah, exactly. This is actually what I've been wondering here. Very good by Mineski here, because by history, I'm not sure if all these regions were able to scout Mineski's performance during the GPL, wherein they did send that Warwick top for Kaigo with much
Kaigo,
success.
That was a possibility, and Kaigo going top lane against Oppamin on that Renekton definitely could survive with the sustain that Warwick naturally has. I want to see how that mid lane matchup will go. As for the bot lane, it's definitely going to be the Kennen actually, not Kaigo. Zensho will be playing that Kennen bot lane along with a Bard, so lots of magic damage, lots of utility and damage there for the bot lane. But as for Soul Stuff Gaming, that is going to be the Blitzcrank instead of a utility support, so it's less of an AD carry centric composition as much as a pressure from the jungle coming from the Ivern. That's what they are taking from the Ivern instead of just the usual Ivern composition where there's like a lot of supports for the AD carry. So of course, we'll be seeing how all that plays out actually.
Eventually, we'll just have to see at the end of the day, of course, for both sides, as to who wins out this first game and brings their regions one step closer to attaining the bragging rights as the champion for our Rift Rivals between these three regions, now down to 2.
Of course, a little handshake from our two coaches, but before everything, we have to look at a short interview with Gigabyte Marines' coach here. Coach Tinikun from Gigabyte Marines, the first seed of the Garena Premier League region of the Southeast Asian region, giving us a few thoughts about Rift Rivals, about the team, about everything else happening within Rift Rivals. So we'll see how all that goes.
Okay, hello everyone. So firstly, I just want to say that we have hope on Mineski and Ascension as well. Really, we think that they can win, but unfortunately they couldn't. When we were brought in this situation, we think it's okay because we feel okay, it's good for us to train the player mentality. I just want to tell the player, okay, please concentrate. Is that all? We Gigabyte Marine spent more than 1 month to prepare for the tournament already. We watch all the replay and things like that, so it's not really a big problem. So I think that tonight, all the 3 teams of the GPL should gather, and we're going to try to set a mindset that we should be confident in play our style instead of trying to play a lot of composition, a lot of play style. I want to tell everyone around GPL recently that even though we Gigabyte Marine, we got a lot of difficulty in the early stage. I mean that about the facility, about the gaming house, something like that. But we really try our best and we can achieve something. So if the other team encounter difficulty, it's not really a big problem. It's about your patience and how much effort you put out for the job. Yeah.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This is finally it. Our first game for the finals for Rift Rivals 2017. Of course, let us know as to who you guys are rooting for as both MSK and Unsold Stuff Gaming from both the GPL and the LJL take the stage. Let's go.
Definitely. Even though Unsold Stuff Gaming is the third seed for the Japan region, they have shown themselves to be quite proficient in the champions and compositions they're playing. And as Coach Tinikon was saying, for the GPL region, just relax and really focus on playing your own style to the best you can. As in, all these wildcard regions, they have their own unique styles, their own unique meta. And I'm really glad that LJL is really playing to their strengths here. Same with MSK, going for that Kaigu Warwick top. Definitely surprising here.
Yeah, honestly, probably not a surprise with the history.
When you consider it.
Yeah, but overall, with the draft that MSK went for, clearly a lot more preparation that we've seen from them out of all their games throughout the Rivals. Really having a clear game plan, going for all these flex picks within the first drafting phase, transitioning that into more surprise for the LGL squad. So I'm really interested in seeing how Unsold Stuff Gaming will be responding to this.
Like, they even baited out an Ashe ban here. It seems like NT might be going for something. Hooks from short ranges might be the end of PG, but he does have some survivability. Zencho still has heal. It seems like it's just going to be a little bit of a trade-off, but note here that NT had to burn the Ignite there, so kill potential now more on MSK. Neo might be going for a gank here in the top lane, but it's a little bit pushed up. Kaigu a little bit safe as well with the regen that he has naturally.
Really love how Unsold Stuff Gaming's bot lane really putting on some level of trade-off. But
Kaigu. Yeah, Kaigu just can definitely just escape from ganks with the bite there. Like, Amez might be going for something here in the mid lane. Exocet really poked out by the mine there.
Yeah, I mean, this is really interesting. I mean, we've been talking about how these past few days have been about all these games kind of being the comp before the tournament. Not really seeing as much action as far as all these games happening across the map, but looks like it's totally different flow heading into the finals for both teams here. Really exerting some level of aggression, really wanting to get the early game started, and if they could pull ahead, you know, just really capitalize on that and snowball.
Yeah, let's talk again about the picks. Like, we talked about how flexible it's like, even baiting out a few AD carry bans come from USG in the second banning phase when the Cannon was actually the AD carry pickup for them. I also like the Nunu response for the Ivern, because the thing is, Ivern, why is he very annoying? Why is he such a pain to face as a jungler? Because he steals your camps, plus he's very good at counter ganking. As for Nunu, he's like Ivern, but with a lot more potential to steal camps, steal objectives, because he can have them in the moment. As for Neo, he needs to set up his globes, so James can definitely do the job of Neo here, but much more efficiently just from the champion pick. But it's up to how they play this jungle to see how the effectiveness of these picks actually result in.
Oh yeah, definitely. And from what we've seen yesterday, because there was only one time that Nunu actually got through, it was for a different team though, and it was actually played to much success. If not mistaken, it was actually Sin Gaming that picked it up. But regardless, here we go though, James going in onto
Look at that. Just a little bit of a poke here. The red buff will deal a lot of damage onto Remind. Just a little bit of relief for Exocen here. Both of these junglers are very much support junglers. They want to control the jungle, while for Neo, it's all about supporting their laners. For James, it's all about denying a lot of farm from Neo and putting out a lot of pressure just from being in the lane.
Yeah, speaking of deny, especially if you're going to consider these two junglers, you know, really efficient at their clears because of the Khonshu and because of the Khonshu, and not to mention the passive.
Look at James right now. Infernal Drake is the squishiest Drake of the game, and I don't think LJL, the LJL team here on Soul Stuff Gaming, has any idea what's happening. And James can just finish this super quickly because, as I said, this is the squishiest Drake of the game. TG is even going to help him a little bit here, which might give a clue, but after all, it is a bard, so it's natural for him to roam around the river. So what USG might be thinking, okay, he's just getting his chimes while our bot lane is backing, but now Infernal Drake already onto MSK in the first 6 minutes of the game.
Yeah, a really different beat to the groove that we're seeing from MSK here, how they've been playing this out. You know, from what we've been seeing these past few games from MSK, it's really these high-risk, high-rewards, wherein they didn't really manifest into the ending. If anything, it actually caused the enemy to snowball. So I really like how they're being a little bit more proactive. I'm seeing a bit more of a level of macro in comparison to earlier. I like how they're really utilizing this Nunu to prioritize that Infernal Drake, you know, the early advantage.
Yeah, this is their last game, and this is only one game in this sort of best of 5 between two regions. So putting out a surprise like this, the Cannon AD carry, the top lane Warwick, the jungle Nunu, even the support Bard, that's really like what they need. Here comes TG, might be hooked in, ignited as well. Zencho's gonna try and trade off with his teammate. but I think he just has to run away from this. Yep.
I really like how, oh.
That's going to be the top lane as well. Kaigu under duress has to go for the Primal Howl to try and just reduce the damage onto him. Tries to go for a little bit of lifesteal as well with the Jaws of the Beast, but in the end, kill against him.
Man, even with all the proactivity happening for Mineski, regardless, 2 kills up for Unsold Stuff Gaming. And overall, though, it's very telling actually as to how confident and how knowledgeable Unsold Stuff Gaming is as far as utilizing their composition, really knowing the advantages.
Exosen might be in trouble. That is the Scatter the Weak just to push NT off. He does survive that. And as you said, yeah, even with the proactivity, it seems like the USG team here is not phased at all by the surprise picks come from Mineski. It's like they just react to it very, very chill, and how they're reacting to this is just completely calm.
Yeah, I mean, regardless, that element of surprise that Mineski was trying to pull off with this draft really doesn't seem that it's affecting Unsold Stuff Gaming in any single way. If anything, we've seen how NT really trying to go for these hooks, making plays for their bot lane here, and it's been really working to much success here. So, regardless, Mineski, clearly, the element of surprise alone isn't... They've worked with that in the drafting phase, but transitioning into this game right now, I think it's something that in the long run wouldn't really work out for them unless they really, again, with the proactivity, try to produce results themselves.
To be fair, though, this composition isn't just surprise picks just for the sake of surprise picks. They actually do have a lot of win conditions to their side. They really want to make these pickoffs happen, while James is trying to make Neo really... cut down his value for USG by taking his camps, countering his pressure. The rest of his laners, once they get their power spikes, once they get these abilities to pick off people that are out of position for USG, it's definitely going to be very big for GPL's team here, Mineski.
Yeah, there we go. So, overall, we're just going to have to see again, Mineski, really up to them to perform above and beyond all expectations.
And Exosen might be in trouble here. It's going to be Neo and NT as well. But Hame is also here, and as I said, countering the pressure that Neo is putting out, and now they're the ones on the chase here with TG also around the corner. The Unleashed Power not quite enough to take down that mid laner here, but it's going to be TG paying with his life. James tries to go for a little bit more, a nice blast onto Remind, but gets blocked away by NT.
Yeah, this is so tricky for Mineski again. This is somewhat reminiscent of what we've been seeing in the previous games, wherein, again, all this proactivity, and then it's so unfortunate because even if they try to go for the counter engage, still USG coming out on top, if anything, only sets Mineski back a little bit more. Gold deficit really starting to manifest slowly, but hopefully not surely, because if this continues to become a continuing trend for Mineski, not only for this game, but based on the pattern that we've seen from them throughout the entire Rift Rivals, then I'm kind of worried for the GPL region.
Definitely, because if you look at the format, the strongest teams only have 2 games, Game 3 and Game 4, to really show up. So for the first 2 games, the third and second seeds rather need to win at least one of those 2 games, so that the first seeds can have a real chance to carry the rest of the region. As for this game in particular, Mineski, yeah, if you consider the 2 compositions, yeah, Mineski can stall it out for a bit longer, despite them being quite behind right now. But if you consider the fact that USG's composition scales really well, they have 2 AD carries, they have their Renekton, but the utility of the Ivern is not going to go away what later the game goes, and NT is just going to be a huge threat being able to hook in people for those 2 AD carries to just pounce on. And that's very difficult.
Indeed, and that's the scary part right there. Like, especially going into these full 5v5s, once that Blitzcrank manages to seek a target, especially a prime target such as Exosen, such as probably Zenshu to an extent, one that they could really take down just like that in a snap, then that's where things will get really tricky for them. So it's not really a scenario wherein, sure, they could try to wait it out until such time that they get back up to par, because later on, the advantages as far as scaling going into the later parts definitely on USG.
It is going to be the Tempered Fate. Actually hits onto Hareti, so it's going to be Zenshu and Ham starting to go for something. Flash burn on Hareti's side. Look at the teleport from the backline, but I think Hareti might be in trouble here. Gets taken down with the binding, Cosmic Binding, down to Apiman, 1v4, 2v4 along with NT, but he has to stay back. James might live with a sliver of health, but no, the Dominus damage takes him down. But it's going to be Apiman dying as well. Daisy, Neo, and Remind here to clean up the fight, but I think with Mineski being pretty high health, they can't live this. 2 kills for 1 in favor of Mineski.
Yeah, finally we're seeing an advantage where Mineski actually emerges on top in that clash right there, but overall, We're just gonna have to see if this is a continuing factor here, because what matters here for MSK at this point, sure, we have been seeing a lot of productivity from USG as far as willing to getting the game started here, trying to establish a lead, but then again, MSK, so long as they are able to trade at the same time, keep on equal ground, as opposed to USG just continuing to pull the gear forward for their team, then I think they should be okay transitioning until the mid game. But later on in the game, that's where I really worry to an extent.
But I do think that the mid game is where Mineski's composition actually shines. That's when Exosen reaches the peak of Syndra's power. That's when Kaigu can really go in, having a good balance of survivability and damage. While for Unsold Stuff Gaming, they still need a Caitlyn and a Corki to really scale up a bit here. But of course, the Renekton is a huge threat under a mid game. So the thing here is they need to get a good pick off. They need to find whoever's out of position here. Looks like Kaigo might be in trouble here. Neo and Opperman force his flash out. The Root Caller will snare him down, but look at all that regeneration he's having, but I don't think it's enough against 2, plus a red buff from Neo might be enough. Just enough to push him out of lane. That survivability of that Warwick is definitely important against this Renekton.
Yeah, especially once you start building up on his core items. Like you mentioned, going into this mid game, it's going to be pretty much Mineski's time to shine here. And I really like the fact that regardless, you know, even with USG themselves, clearly, I think emerging a little bit more with much success as far as their proactivity across the map. I think Mineski overall, they should be fine as long as they get, again, maintain this equal ground with USG. But looks like the first turret actually going to be taken.
Definitely not going to be equal ground after that, because even though Kaigo survived that using most of his resources, the thing is that gave top lane priority to Opperman and Neo, so they were just easily able to take first turret of the game. And if that went to Opperman, that's going to be a scary crocodile on this rift. And Kaigo will have his work cut out for him being a frontline for his team.
Speaking of work cut out for him, indeed, this is going to be tricky for him indeed. With that turret down, not to mention the fact that the CS difference definitely manifesting into itself, giving Kaigo a little bit more of a climb, hopefully able to keep up with the rest of the Mineski squad so that they could have a better transition going into this mid game here. Because if any of these members from Mineski fall behind, it's going to be almost a little bit harder to take advantage of that spike going into that mid game.
And the thing is, yeah, coming to this mid-game, USG does have a little bit of potential once Remind has his Triforce ready, but he did have to go for the Hex Drinker first, so that does delay the spike a bit, but Mineski will be able to match that power. But here comes Exos and might be in trouble here. The Redemption will help this mid laner out. Remind has to go in and flash, but here comes Zensho. Might go for the 1v2 here, but he is rooted, he is stunned. Look at all that damage coming from Remind. Double kill for USG's mid laner. Huge gold spike.
Yeah, definitely not a good move there by Mineski. If anything, Zensho trying to not only help his teammate, but hopefully get the kill, but if anything, only resulted to a double casualty themselves. So, you know, it's interesting because Exosen was almost dead meat at that point, but Zensho trying to go for the save, instead of making it an asset, really ended up more as a liability at this
just as I said that, yeah, Remind's a little bit behind in itemization because he had to go for the Hex Drinker. Now he gets like 600 gold, which does help him itemize further into the Stinger, into the Triforce, means that that spike is going to come sooner. Plus for Mineski, I don't know why Exosen keeps trying to go for these 1v1s against Remind, because if you consider the itemization for this, for Neo here, the Redemption is a natural itemization path. So, if you go for a 1v1, that Redemption, when the jungler is not even just nearby, just within range, is able to turn the tides, and it definitely turned the tides there.
Yeah, this is going to be Mineski really needing to step up at this point. And the thing is, they have been going for these attempts to step up. It's just that the problem here is that when they do, it just turns around on them ultimately. So, regardless of this, regardless of the effort, if that effort doesn't actually produce the results that Mineski needs to transition well in the mid game, they're gonna miss out on that spike.
Oh dear! Remind kills Exosen with his buddy Opperman there in the mid lane, which gives them even more priority. 3 members here in the mid lane. Sheen on Remind means that that's gonna be a very fast turret kill, but Tempered Fate does push them off.
Definitely. So regardless, we're gonna have to see. There we go though. We do have yet another turret being taken off.
Oh man, I think that's going to be Kaigu having to survive with a Primal Howl, having a little bit of damage reduction. But still, that means that he's using all of his abilities defensively, meaning that this Hunter is not marking his prey very, very well so far.
Man,
Let's look at the replay for what happened in mid lane.
Yeah, so here we go. Exosen
Man, he
actually
saw that.
Yeah, exactly. And remind, look at the damage here. And then Appleman as well, granting him that extra stun to really make sure that they get the takedown onto Exosen, not allowing Exosen to even retaliate with any of the
The
skills.
Scatter the Wink missed, and even though he knew that Appaman was around the corner with his own ward, he could have just went for the Scatter the Weak onto Appaman, because he's much more of a threat close range than Remind is. He could have just walked away from Remind with, like, even if he's bleeding, even if he's low health. But once Appaman gets on him, the stuns will just allow Remind to free hit him so much. So I think a misplay there, a mechanical misplay from the Scatter the Weak of that Syndra.
Yeah, this is going to be quite the trouble that Mineski's in right now. The longer this game goes, the more that they start to falter, the more that this goal difference actually gets wider.
Exosen gets hooked in after being snared. I don't think he's going to survive that. Heretic gets the kill, and I think James has to pay for his buddy's sins here. NT might have his rocket grab very soon. Root Caller does actually CC him. The trap doesn't quite activate quick enough for Heretic to get a headshot. Zensho gonna try and square up against Remind. It's gonna be 1v1. Look at that damage that Remind's putting out. The slicing Maelstrom I don't think is enough, but it's actually gonna be Kaigu with a teleport play, giving the shutdown kill onto his AD carry.
Love that play coming in from Kaigu. Whether or not it actually sets Mineski back onto this map. Sure, a small victory, but still they have a long way to go.
Shutdown for the AD carry, which is important, but all that happening means Hereta is free to just push this mid lane. He has the red buff, so pushing that turret is very quickly going for him. So all of these resources that Mineski is taking, Unsold Stuff Gaming is also not letting them take them for free. And that's actually, I think, more valuable for USG to get that mid lane turret. Because even though, yeah, sure, Zensho gets the shutdown kill, but in the end, Hareti is still ahead, pretty much ahead, same KDA, but the CS differential is 20. It's actually pretty big for AD carries. Plus, the mid lane turret going down means there's a lot more map potential, map control for Unsold Stuff Gaming.
Yeah, if anything, this is actually the opportunity where Unsold Stuff Gaming could really start exerting a lot of offense onto Mineski's own territory, really getting full control of this game. And that, in effect, is quite worrisome for Mineski at this point, because if they're not able to respond properly with their own line of defense, not only just in terms of the champs themselves as far as getting farmed up, but also in terms of their own vision, then it's just going to be USG making a pick-off fest out of Mineski, and that's something that Mineski can afford at this point with the deficiency that they're at right now, almost leaning towards a 5,000 gold difference.
And the pick-off game, that's the game that's Mineski is wanting to actually put out, but here, they're the ones on the receiving end of being picked off. Exosen 0, 3, and 0. Definitely a very weak Syndra right now, not having a lot of value for this Mineski team, while USG is just taking objectives left and right. Exosen has to run away from NT. This might actually reveal their plans of having his Rift Herald, but they do take it. This might be a turning point to have some goal, but look at that teleport play from Appaman. They want to take this team fight. Daisy has been summoned. Exosen, I think, is stuck between a rock and a hard place, but it's going to be the magical journey helping him out, but that is not enough. Knocked up by Daisy, but actually, Tempered Fate does save them, but Redemption might kill. Actually, very fast enough to actually get out of there. Kaigu goes in with his infinite duress, goes in even further, but I don't think this is enough power for Mineski to push forward because two of their members are very low.
Yeah, good on Mineski though. That could have really gone bad for them had they not been able to escape. So again, very much mission accomplished for them. Not only were they able to escape with no casualties, but at the same time, securing that Rift Herald, hopefully used to optimal potential so that this could make up for lost grounds. Again, the difference is quite huge, and we're only heading into 20 minutes of the game.
Oh, they're already summoning it.
We'll just have to see how well this will bode for Mineski. I mean, I believe this is actually leaning towards the...
Yes, this is going to the top side here along with Kaigu. They did summon it from very far into the base, so now USG has to make a decision. But look at that ward from Unsold Stuff Gaming. They definitely know now that Rift Herald is going for the top lane. A fight here might happen in the bot lane with Zensho having to run away from Remind, but now Remind's the one under duress here. Has to Valkyrie, no flash even, over the wall. Gets out of dodge very safely.
Such a shame that that was missed by Exosen, because if that's stun, if he got the stun, but man, again, it's such an unfortunate, these small micro misplays coming in from Mineski, which could have resulted to better things for them. But again, because of how crucial this, because of those misses, it ultimately denies them. So again, a lot of small mishaps to even monumental ones coming in from Mineski thus far to try to get back into this game. Had it played it in a little bit more correctly, again, it probably would have boded much more better for them and probably leading the goal difference to what, probably around 2,000 to 3,000. So we'll just have to see. Rift Herald, though, not really used to its optimal.
Yeah, they tried to go for a play where USG would have to decide where's the Rift Herald going. It's either mid lane or top lane. And because of that war, they actually saw exactly where it was going, so Appaman was able to respond to that very, very quickly. If they weren't able to get that information, maybe Appaman would have went mid lane or bot lane, and without teleport, Kaigo would have gone into top lane. But because of that cheeky ward from USG, it was very coincidental, but still, that information allowed them to react to the Rift Herald very, very cleanly.
And this is what
Ocean Drake.
Yeah, and this is what we've been talking about right here. The fact that all outer turrets gone out for MSK, this definitely allowed a lot more flexibility that USG was able to capitalize on. And again, that warding, absolutely impeccable. Scouting out that Rift Herald, not really to intention, but still the ward really did its work. So overall, this is just USG having all the right cards in place for them.
Even with the two Drakes on the side of Mineski, it's not really a lot of value at this point. Infernal Drake, yeah, let's, around 21 minutes, let's peg it at around 1.2k value, which does close out the gold gap a little bit in terms of stats, but the Ocean Drake going to Unsold Stuff Gaming definitely helps out their composition more. This is a very siege-heavy composition who wants to stay in the lane, stay for the objectives much longer than Mineski, and that little bit of regeneration of the Ocean Drake is going to help them out in that regard. As for Mineski, it's still very, very difficult for them to actually play their win conditions because their high damage, heavy burster, Exosen is very, very behind. 0-3 and 0, while Zensho not really reaching the peak of potential for this Kennen. Actually has to be pushed out by Heretti. NT is also here, Cosmic Binding there to stun him down, so we might have to give up the chase.
Wonder what happened to Zensho right there, allowing himself to get trapped actually. That would have been one heck of a fiasco if, you know, USG really got the proper follow-up onto that.
Kaigo might go for Appaman here. That fears might actually turn the tides of battle. Gonna flash onto that, but Appaman trying his best to just survive. With the Call to Meek, Redemption will not get there in time to save him. That's the power of the Kaigo pick here. The sustain is definitely enough to just outscale Appaman no matter what point of the game it is. Even though that this Renekton is ahead in terms of itemization, Kaigo can just power through that with his own sustain, which the Call to Meek cannot compare to. But of course, we'll see if that actually gives anything to Mineski. It might not be substantial at all.
Yeah, and that's the tricky part here, because even though the rest of members of Mineski at this point are pretty okay, I'd say, again, the problem is here with Exosen, quite behind regardless of the fact that he's up to par with Remind in terms of CS, because 0-3 and 0 against the 4-1, that's still something that Mineski has to deal with right now as far as catching up.
Yeah, it seems like Kaigo's kill there in the bot lane was actually substantial. Being able to shove in this minion wave so it crashes onto the turret means that the rest of USG has to react to it. Appaman has to go to the bot side while the rest of USG has to pull away from the top side push. So that is some effort made by Kaigo there, actually manifesting into some value. But here, Exosen still has to catch up a lot in terms of his stats. And if you're on Syndra and you want to catch up in terms of stats, that's very difficult for the rest of your team to actually carry you through that while you're trying to reach that point of power.
Man, at this point, we're heading into 25 minutes into the game. Mineski, this is technically, with the composition that they have, this would have been the moment of their prime. But, you know, with the unfortunate misdirection that they've had, I'd say, as far as falling behind in comparison to what USG's lead has right now. Again, this is like a window of opportunity that Mineski needs to try to capitalize on by getting back into this game while this mid game is still effective, because transitioning later into the late game, once Remind and Heretti really gets things going for this both Corki and Caitlyn, once they really start building up, once full itemization is technically reached, if it even goes far into that game, then that's where USG will just really pop off beyond Mineski, even with everything said and done.
The double AD carry composition here means that once the late game comes, Unsold Stuff Gaming can just continue to get these objectives with the long range of Caitlyn, with the Sheen procs from the Triforce of Remind. It just means that the pain will just arrive onto these turrets of Mineski. Plus, they have the brush coming from Neo here. That Ivern pick really helpful when you have 280 carries. The invisibility gained, the camouflage gained by those extra brush that you can create. The terrain advantage is definitely great for 280 carries, especially if one of them is a sniper. And this is just going to help their siege much more. And look at that.
Speaking
Just
of siege,
baiting out the Tempered Fate here.
Let's say even if we head into these full-on 5v5s between Mineski and USG, what's really scary here is that at this point, if you're going to look at the itemization that Neo has, Locket of the Iron Solari, Athene's Unholy Grail, plus the fact that he has Redemption, a lot of protection already for USG at this point. So it's going to actually be harder for Mineski to take down a member right away with all that utility coming in from the Ivern. Not to mention the fact that, again, we've been talking about how Remind and Hereti with this composition is just really going to pop up. And they have all the protection in the world right now coming in from the Ivern to really work their magic as far as the damage output is concerned.
Look at that, USG, the patience. They're not going for the Baron, even though there's absolutely no vision for Mineski here. But because of the pressure, okay, they might be doing Baron. So Mineski has to stick around the top side and mid side, which means that this bot side could be a little bit neglected except for the split pushers here. So as for the patience come from USG, they have complete control over that area. And the thing here is that once they get a good pickoff against Mineski, it's just going to tumble down for Mineski after that.
Man, again, with Kaigo, I gotta say, definitely stepping up his game here. But then again, there's still that big question on my mind as to where the other members of Mineski lie right now. That sure, we could say that Zencho's 2-1-1, but whether or not that actually translates to anything just yet for Mineski as far as getting back into this game or even toppling over USG is somewhat a big question on my mind, because if you're going to look at it, even with the max damage output from Zencho, let's say even if he gets a good slicing Maelstrom setup, again, a lot of that could be negated by the pure utility coming from this Ivern because of the protective nature of his build here.
All
Again,
those shields are definitely going to be a hamper onto Mineski's plans of picking off anybody. They really need a perfect setup here, either a good setup with a Tempered Fate or just a really great combination of the Scatter the Weak into the Slicing Maelstrom into the Primal Howl. The Primal Howl will actually be very important because it is an AoE fear plus the Infinite Rest, but here comes Zencho, might be fighting it out here along with Enti. Enti gonna get taken down. The Solari will be proc here, but Zencho's going in deep. This might be dangerous for him. He's actually below half health already, and then TG has to be taken down, and now it's going to be Appaman flashing onto Exos, and he cannot deal so much damage right now, but Enti is also low, but Kaigo can only survive for so long. Going to be Appaman taken down as well, but James pays for it with his life, so there's only Exos and then Zencho left. No frontline means, yeah, Mineski cannot fight this.
and you know what the problem was there? That Exocet was already in range to really get a full-on combo onto Remind right there. But if you're going to look at the damage, not even substantial. Almost, if anything, just a little bit of a scratch onto Remind. So, again, this is what I've been talking about here as far as manifesting into the mid-game. Everyone else in Mineski, I'd say, is at a pretty okay position except for Exosen because of that deficiency that he has, really falling behind. 0-3 still, not a single kill to his name, and the damage isn't really reflecting. And again, with the Hex Trigger for Remind, not to mention, so definitely had some good match versus as well to kind of deal with that damage from Exosen.
Definitely, not even that small 3 CS he has above Remind is enough to put him back in the game. Because right now, all he's really good for is to just put down stuns with Scatter the Weak. Let's see how that fight just went wrong.
Yeah, here we go though. Enti actually trying to go for the hook onto Zencho, but then again, this is what's interesting here. Zencho actually changing immediate targets onto Remind here, but then again, look at this Remind. Not really even feeling that much damage from these two primary carries here, and it was just USG at this point really toppingly over the rest of the members of Mineski because, again, the damage output just isn't even right there. Kaigo actually trying to frontline, but again, even with Scatterwake all said and done coming in, there's still a lack of damage coming in from the Mineski squad here that even though, sure, they could go up to par as far as the setups, but whether or not they could actually get the finish onto USG, that's still the big question mark, not really translating, not even working actually yet, just yet.
Yeah, because that state of that fight would have been great for Syndra that wasn't that behind. If Exosen had a little bit more kills, was not so behind in this case, he would have been able to finish off a lot of those low health members from USG. But since USG had so much support systems there, so many shields, so much tankiness as well, so much magic resist too, Exosen just couldn't do his job there. And that was all set up because he was camped in lane. Every time he tried to go for something against Remind, Neo was there to back him up. And here comes James. Might go for a Baron steal here. Is that Nunu, but gets stun locked immediately. Ganged up upon by 5 members mean that he has to run away. Well, Exosen gets immediately taken down. Now Zencho's turn is next for the chopping block. Appaman chasing TG down. Has to recall. They will regroup and then buy their items here.
Yeah, this is such an unfortunate circumstance for Mineski. Again, like we've been talking about, this is like the final moment for them to shine. And not only just that, considering the nature of the format of the finals right now, every single win counts. That we've been talking about how not a single team per region could carry the entire game, and with the format right now, Gigabyte Marines technically can't even carry even with winning 2 games, because at least either Ascension Gaming or Mineski need to step up with at least 1 win. So unfortunately, as far as what's manifesting right now on the Rift, it seems that GPL might have that setback.
Definitely. It's going to be up to Ascension next game to actually get a win for Gigabyte Marines to continue the streak. But for now, Mineski is really putting a handicap on the GPL region for now. And USG has been playing this so well. This isn't just Mineski misplaying. This is USG knowing where Mineski's weakest and exploiting that. They know that, okay, Exosen is going to be a huge threat if he gets ahead. So, okay, we'll make sure Remind gets all these kills. We'll make sure that Remind is 6-1-3 once late game comes. And that's because Neo, every time, as I said, every time Exosen tries to go for a 1v1 against Remind, the redemption from Neo is there. The shields from the seed bomb is there coming from Neo. The trigger seed is just so big and keeping Remind alive in this lane. And the support as well from NT. There's so much roam coming from NT there that TG cannot just match.
And the unfortunate thing here is that we might seem bleak with how we're going about Mineski potentially coming back, but that's the problem right here. Let's say if by pure chance Exosen even gets back into the game, as far as the minutes go by, transitioning into late game, it would have already been too late.
Because the thing is, this composition does not fare well from behind. The Cannon, the Syndra, they do not want to get behind. Plus, your Nunu. The Nunu's job is to turn the game into a 4v4.5, where you're the 4.5. But in this case, low economy junglers like Ivern can really put that out, and it seems like James was not able to put out the pressure and the objective steals that a Nunu is expected to do, and because of this, he's not really relevant at this point in the fight. USG can just completely ignore him in team fights. This might change though once this fight actually happens. Kaigu goes in, tries to go for Haredi, but look at that, Exosen almost gets taken down. Finally gets a kill against Remind. Look at those high death timers, but now Neo also under duress, but the rest of Mineski has to clean up this fight. Zencho gets stun locked, and I think he's gonna get taken down. Double kill onto Aquaman. So now it's going to be up to Exosen to actually help him out after he regens. But look at these high health members from USG. Haredi is still high up there in terms of health, and he's continuing to push.
Man, this is just so bad for Mineski at this point. And the problem is, even with the takedown on Remind, that was a lot of resources actually exhausted to take out that one carry that they didn't really leave any much more options in order to deal with Haredi right after that. So this, again, it's just quite bleak for Mineski at this point, considering the win conditions. Like I've been talking about, the window of opportunity to really shine in the mid-game was pretty much shut down. So it'll almost take a bit of a miracle in a way for Mineski.
That's true. A hope and a prayer is what Mineski needs right now, because it's, if you look at the compositions, it's really so difficult to get back. The Syndra being 1-4-2 at 33 minutes means that he will not deal damage at all. Even if he has over 300 farm, that is just not going to manifest into any significant damage, especially when you consider the composition here. Neo on that Ivern with so many shields available. Aquaman with a Sterex gauge, with the adaptive helm. So good. Remind as well with that Maw of Malmortius ready, and Haredi just being able to just lifesteal completely with a Warlord's Bloodlust, and the damages he brings out. That means Exosen has to be super scared when he wants to go for the Unleash power onto this AD carry. So it's so difficult.
Yeah, and it's such a shame, because if you're going to look at it, Mineski, with all the proactivity in the world, actually taking the first true Drakes of the game, really trying to get the setup as to keeping up to par. If anything, try to topple over USG, really reaching their advantage towards the mid-game. But again, with the proactivity came the mishaps as to whenever they did try to get the initiate, or whenever they go try to for the counter engage, you know, it doesn't really result to anything. If anything, it only spelled much more problems for them because of the takedowns, because of USG coming up on top in all these different clashes, to smaller skirmishes, to even bigger fights. So
yeah, no, let's actually look at that before the draft. I mean, during the draft, before the game even started. James, how has James impacted Mineski's team? Of course, he got the Drake. Of course, this might actually be a fight though, but it's so super dangerous. Zencho goes in for the slicing maelstrom, but the rest of his team is actually being taken down. That is going to be Kaigu and James trying to go in, but Kaigu, even with all the lifesteal in the world, still gets absolutely annihilated, while USG still very, very healthy, trying to go for this turret next. Mineski has to back off without even anything in return.
Man, the more that I realize it, now that I think about it, USG, I've been talking about with Vulcan the other day how Nunu has been a constant ban onto Mineski. So I think that the fact that USG actually left it open might have actually been on purpose, because if you're going to think about it, this Ivern we've been talking about how Nunu with the Khonshu could actually deny, but then again, what's that in comparison to Ivern? Because of his passive, to just really clear junglers even much more faster than a Nunu in all technicality.
Plus, once the late game comes, there's actually more value from the Ivern. What I talked about the Nunu-Ivern matchup did not manifest here, because even though James got early Drakes, his laners were not able to actually take advantage of it. Those bonus stats from those Drakes do not come into play that early in the game. And because Neo was more focused on snowballing Remind, that puts USG in such a good spot coming into the mid-game and then into this late game. So MSK, even though they had really clear win conditions here, it didn't seem like they were going for it from the get-go. Of course, they could go for Drakes, but in the end, those Drakes don't really matter in the early game when your stats percentage is very low. Kaigo might go for a flank here onto Remind, but look at that front line from Apaman and Enti, and all of that happening is just he's trying to go in. Exosen has to actually flash away, so now he's separated from the rest of his team, so now there's no threat on this side of MSK. Sniped down, blue turret destroyed there, so it's just pushing in the mid lane from the super minions. Exosen trying to go for more kills onto Enti. There's going to be Kaigo as well with the USG team separated. This might be an opportunity for MSK, but Exo has to retreat. All of them very, very low. Kaigo going for the cleanup here onto Remind. TG flashes away. Remind follows, but not at the right path. Kaigo is hunting him down. He might go for something. In the meanwhile, Apaman's actually been pushing this top lane and mid lane very, very quickly, but I don't think Exosen and James are enough to take him down. Remind actually beats and outplays Kaigo with their top lane. I think it's going to be Apaman finishing this game in the mid lane, because James and TG are not enough to stop this Crocodile.
Not at all, unfortunately. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. That'll be game point as we give our congratulations, of course, to USG, winners of Game 1 for the Rift Rivals 2017 Finals.
Very, very well played there by Unsold Stuff Gaming. They knew where Exosen and the rest of MSK were weakest. They knew that if Neo kept counter-ganking for his mid laner, that would mean Exosen would never get any kills. And kills are paramount to a Syndra. So all that just culminates into something that MSK just absolutely lost from the early game to the mid game. Throughout every phase of the game, they were just outclassed. And I think even, yes, James has a very good Nunu. But when you bring this into the international stage where they're much more adaptable, and they being able to pick up the Ivern, it just didn't manifest into something that had a lot of advantages for MSK. And as I kept saying, Drakes are good, but even if you get them early, the percentage, the 8% AP and AD that you get from Infernal Drake, that's not going to help a lot in the early game. And the early game was really what set up USG for success.
Man, oh man, oh man. LJL though, one step ahead, actually one win away, well, 2 wins away technically, from achieving the championship title, becoming the champions for Rift Rivals, besting these 3 regions. But of course, we'll just have to see. It all comes down to how Ascension Gaming and Gigabyte Marines will be performing later.
We're passing the baton to you guys.
That's right there. But
of course, we'll be in Shoutcasters for this first game. I'm Atlas. With me was Arctic. We'll see the next game between Ascension and the second seed of LJL after the short break.
Yeah.